You have to be ready when you're watching this video because we're about to get into the depth of human consciousness, human unconscious, all the things that are running in the background that are keeping us trapped in this reality when every single one of us want to create a new world. We want to get back into the Garden of Eden. And so how come it feels so challenging? Well, the Garden of Eden, or the true paradise that the earth is designed to be, and these angelic human vehicles that we were always meant to have, the reason that we have become dislodged or severed from it is not because the humans got kicked out. I think that was a biblical story that was created to insert guilt and unworthiness to actually trap us out of the true Garden of Eden, heaven on earth, the heaven on earth blueprint that we're all tapped into. We're all on this mission to co-create heaven on earth. It is actually already everywhere. It is just the natural reality that exists. And what is locking us out of that reality are actually these subconscious, subtle frequencies of consciousness and energy, these viruses of beliefs and thought forms inside of our body and our light body and our water body and our consciousness. And when you start meditating and getting into this multidimensional self-healing journey, you realize that all of those realms are actually integrated, that your consciousness is enmeshed with the physical, that spirit comes into form, and spirit and form are one spectrum of a reality, that your consciousness is actually embedded within every dimension of your body. And once we start perceiving reality through that way, right, this is why they no longer teach us to be self-aware. In fact, they try to create as much fragmentation and disassociation between our mind and our body as they possibly can from before we were born. This is the false matrix, false Garden of Eden, a soul trap that is the false matrix that is everywhere, right? Every single program in this reality is trying to disassociate our soul from the body. And they're doing this because this is the only way they can trap us in a fractured reality, because the body is naturally coded to be one with nature. The body is coded to be in harmony with this organic resonance of life that is the vibration of heaven on earth. And it's our mind and our energy that is actually trapping us, disconnecting us from that energy that is already the organic world on the planet. And so these inserts, these programs, they're deeply subconscious, and they are things that we have accepted as normal. So, for example, we are used to being driven by fear and lack. We think that not having enough is just the way the world is, that if we want to survive, we have to hustle and stress ourselves out and work 80 billion hours just to get somewhere. And this energy of scarcity then drives our actions. And we think that that is actually just normal. What is life? That's how my dad lived his life, his entire life, and he thinks that's what reality is. But when we tune into the original blueprint of our body and ask the question, God, how have you made this body? How was this body designed to experience and to express itself? Then we realize that all of these overlays, like the scarcity virus, the scarcity program, slavery program, is actually changing the way that our bodies are experiencing and expressing itself. So this energy of lack and scarcity, it forces our kidneys to exert and to squeeze life force energy, right? To be enslaved, to be siphoned, to be parasited and eaten, to be devoured by this false matrix soul prison. And when I ask my kidneys, what is my original organic state of consciousness that I'm meant to be in as I was designed, as this paradise world was made for humans and all of life to experience, to enjoy from the goodness and the benevolence of the true eternal God, my body shows me that my kidneys are meant to experience peace and joy and inspiration from the beauty of nature that inspires me to seek the goodness inside of me, that then I can share and create more joy and abundance in this world for my brothers and sisters, for all other beings that live in this world. And this is the heaven on earth blueprint, the original Garden of Eden. And when we talk about returning to heaven on earth, we have to track all of the artificial consciousness and implants and distortions and viruses of beliefs that we're holding inside of our body, because that is all that is keeping us from being in the present, being in presence with heaven on earth that we are already on. So it sounds simple, but this control system has been so intentional and multi-layered that, basically since the time before we were conceived, the programming has started to try to infect us from how our parents came together, right? They were probably not taught divine union and the sanctity of life. And many of us were accidents, right? And so from the moment they came together, the distortions and the lack of sanctity of how sacred human bodies really are, it's already imprinted into the energy behind the creation. And then throughout the whole pregnancy, our mom might have been eating factory farm foods and GMOs and all these things that actually continue to degenerate and just imprint our organic energy, our DNA, with these fallen frequencies, let's say. And then we might be born in the hospital, and our first moment of breath is being smacked by some person that we don't know in a room full of flashing lights. And our first breath we take, we're screaming and crying into this world because there's so much fear enveloping that experience. And to think that that is the first moment when our soul, that is home in the heart of God, just takes that first breath in this physical reality, right? That immediately inserts such a profound level of a separation trauma in our lungs, in our body, that we are so numb to. Human beings are absolutely numb to these levels of pain because without the presence, without connection to God, without understanding how to come into communion with unconditional love, it is very, very challenging to sit with these realities and with these traumas, because it is just the most painful experience in the world. And also that is why our soul chose to come into this reality, is to experience that separation, because it's kind of not possible in most other places in the universe. And so I am this consciousness and human ascension light body researcher. I spend a lot of my time meditating and scanning my body, getting inside of my inner landscapes where my body is this oracle for God's intelligence, because the force and the intelligence that made this body, I have the ability to connect with that force through this body, through the water intelligences, through this body's connection to life. And when I go into these journeys, God guide me to show me things that awaken my gifts of multidimensional healing, that help me to recover and heal and clear these imprints from humanity, both individually in human bodies, as well as collectively in the collective consciousness, as well as in the planetary grid, in the planet as a whole. And so this experience of uncovering the curse of Eve actually started first when I was giving birth to my daughter the first time. My first birth, almost, I think, 5 years ago now. Can you guys believe it? It's been 5 years since 2020. It's kind of crazy. But I was preparing for a pleasurable, peaceful, pain-free birth, because that is what my daughter had been guiding me on. I know that it's hard to believe even that birth can be pain-free, because we're just constantly inundated with this program, both interdimensionally through the Bible and also through television, through TV shows. Every single scene of a birth you see is like screaming and fear and all this crazy stuff, right? It's this horrible experience. To the fact that we even say, oh, like women, we have such strong tolerance, pain tolerance, because we give birth. It's just commonly accepted that birth is supposed to be painful. And my whole pregnancy with my daughter, she was teaching me that this is not true, because we think about the birth portal. It is a gateway, it is a stargate. It is through this space in which souls enter into this world. And so think about how much pain and turmoil and fear there is in this world. Could there be a relationship between how human beings are entering into the world and how that is actually creating pain, perpetuating this world of pain? So, my whole pregnancy, she was helping me heal my multidimensional womb trauma, the seals and implants and past life and this life sexual trauma and the tensions and the programs that really block us from connecting to the true power of the female body. And she was telling me that the pain and the trauma and the implants is actually what creates so much pain in the woman's body when she's giving birth, and that it's actually not natural. It's part of this false matrix soul prison system. Of course, this was super hard for me to believe because it's just so unheard of, but there are actually books and documentaries about this very thing if you're interested in it. But of course, this became the basis for Healing the Womb, the course that I channeled from this beautiful soul that continued for many years, in which we teach women about the womb stargate and how, in order to create and birth a world of heaven, we have to first experience it in our body and heal our womb stargate so that we are consistently on a moment-to-moment basis actually birthing this frequency, this tone of heaven into this physical reality. And the way that we do that is by healing our own body and reclaiming our womb stargate. And so yeah, this whole thing with Eve then really came up when I was in the middle of my birthing experience and I was in labor. And instead of just being able to be with my labor, I got pulled into the planetary grid and I started feeling all this pain in my body. And I saw what it was called the curse of Eve. And I saw basically this guilt and shame that it was the woman's fault that we got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And this is why we've been punished with painful childbirth. And it's our fault. So we should just take it. And this is our punishment. And we should be happy to be in pain. And I thought that was just so interesting because I didn't grow up Christian. My parents are not Christian. I'm not, I don't really follow. I don't really go to church and so forth. And so for me to have experienced how deeply this program was woven into my body, I realized that these subconscious programs create almost these physical, energetic fields that even if you think you're not Christian or you don't, subscribe to those belief systems, it still subconsciously imprints into your light body just by you existing on this planet and in the soup of human consciousness. It's a deeply subconscious fear or program that you don't really even know you have until you are in it. And so I found that very interesting, even though I was kind of disappointed that I was having this pain. And then my team and I pulled this program out of my body, and then I had a very orgasmic experience of birthing my baby. So this was my first major initiation into this grid. And I know it sounds outrageous. I know that it sounds crazy. How could it be that every single person on this planet is programmed by something that leads to a collective reality, right? But when you think about it and you zoom out, like everything's like that. Everyone has subscribed to this reality that there is poverty, there is famine, there is war. And so that's the reality we're in. And so the only way that we're going to be able to step outside of that is actually to be courageous and brave enough to step out. Kara, sorry, one second. Okay. The only way that we're going to really be able to create a new world is if we get crazy enough to believe in ourselves and how deep this stuff really goes, and I guess I'm just a deep sea diver. was born with this insatiable hunger to explore the depth of human consciousness, and I just have this sight to be able to see through the different grids and the different distortions that exist in consciousness and DNA. And I guess this is just one of the gifts that I have, and I'm sharing this awareness with everyone, so that those of you that are crazy enough to actually believe that you can change the world will go in and do this depth of healing that will allow you to give birth to a whole new reality. And it really begins with these distortions and programs that are really not easy to look at. Okay, so this particular energy that about the false Garden of Eden came through this oracle journey in which I was tracking this. It's really a pornographic insert. And what I mean by that is, like, I've done a lot of sessions with, hundreds and hundreds of women on the healing of this trauma that's related to our like intimacy. And so many women have expressed to me that because they have watched different kinds of pornography in their youth, that now they have this almost like they feel like they desire to be abused, they want to be abused, they want to be like manhandled, and they feel like this is what arouses them. Okay, and this energy, I thought it was so interesting because obviously this is not natural, and I felt like it was really important for me to track this consciousness and this energy. And when I started tracking this, I was surprised to have been brought back to actually the Garden of Eden. I mean, I thought I was going to get pulled into some sort of pleasure pain reversal sexual misery program, which of course is a network. It's part of this. But I was really surprised that I actually got pulled all the way back into the false Garden of Eden, where I saw that there are all of these lineages that were genetically degraded, and that when I tuned into this consciousness of Eve, it was this similar frequency of a young woman that is not embodied in her own power, that is easily deceived or gives away her power, wants to be subservient, right? Wants to be submissive, wants to serve its male owners, wants to be, and this is basically this, enslavement breeding program that has been so deeply embedded into human bodies and soma and the genetics. And you even think about the biblical story of Eve, about how, she was just made to be a companion for Adam, and she didn't have a mind of her own, really. And then she just got tricked, and oops, she ate the apple. And that was how we all got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And then they try to tell us that Eve is the mother of every single human being on earth. And now, what does that subconsciously imprint into the collective consciousness about the vibration of mother? And this is, really, really deep stuff that we're talking about, because this agenda to erase the feminine principle of creation, erase Holy Mother from religion, from human consciousness, it is this intentional process of controlling life itself. It's not just they hate Holy Mother, it's not just they don't want us to remember her, is that the very fact that we are disconnected from her disconnects us from the sanctity of life itself. And this is the only way that, like, in order for them to control humans and to have them inside of this false matrix soul prison, we have to be disconnected from life, and we have to seek outside of ourselves for that connection through priests, through religion, through all of these things where there's an intermediary between us and God and creation. But the teachings of Holy Mother share with us that matter is creation in form. So just by the fact that we have a body, we are divinity inside of this matter that was formed in the image of God. And so if we had the knowledge of Holy Mother, then every human would be able to commune with the divine and to nature and to God through their own bodies. And obviously that would make it impossible for us to be controlled. And so this deep curse spell had to be placed over humanity And so many of these stories are woven inside of these false programs of the Bible. And that's not to say there are no amazing teachings in the Bible. I love the stories about Jesus and so many things that are amazing in the Bible. And there are many things that were falsified to create these spells of consciousness and to sever humanity from the true, eternal, living creation through our body. And so one of the stories is, of course, Eve, and how this idea of the first mother was this silly little girl that didn't know anything, that was very naive. And now, because we don't have a vision of mother, we don't have Holy Mother, now we're all of these lost children that do not know how to mature ourselves. And this is why, the reason why they want us to be immature and youthful, they want to cap our maturation, is because when we grow into an adult female or male, become a man and a woman, we become self-aware, self-empowered, connected to God, sovereign. We have our creative ideas. We become devoted to life. We develop these qualities of our human heart that are evolved. And when we're evolved, again, we become these powerful beings that are impossible to be controlled or enslaved or farmed. And so they want us to think that Eve is the pinnacle of womanhood as our progenitor mother. And, she couldn't see her abuser because she was created to be a slave and to be in that way. And so this deep program, and again, is so subconscious, because someone on Instagram, I was having a conversation with her, and she was like, don't you think that it's supposed to hurt when we give birth? And, it's so hard to conceptualize that these deep programs can be embedded inside of every human being that is playing out on the world stage. It's very hard to wrap our heads around that. But what we are literally trying to communicate is that this is an energy that is capping our emotional growth, capping our spiritual growth, capping who we believe ourselves to be and what we're capable of becoming. And this Eve, so we think about this word Eve, just tuning into that word, right? And it's interesting, the word Eve always have sounded pretty clonish to me. And then in the last 10, 20 years, there was a cult that came out. It was called Railism. And it was about this man who believed he's from the Elohim. And he believed that we needed to create cloning factories because that's the way to eternal life. And they actually created the very first clone, and her name was Eve. And it was just such a crazy, I think there is now a documentary made about that whole cult. But there's a very wild reflection point that when I was first, it came out actually, the documentary, I found it when I was discovering all this stuff. And it was just very intense confirmation on what I was tracking. So this Eve energy feels very clonish. It's like this infantile, naive female consciousness that is memory wiped. That's what it felt like when I remote viewed this word. And in Hebrew, the word actually means source of life. And so it's like this memory wipe, this overlay of eradicating the Holy Mother and replacing it with this infantile memory wipe little girl that is a breeder slave. Okay, and I know that sounds very, very intense, but that's just the very deep energetic field that is overlaid. And then you look at popular media like Ariana Grande, right? And Britney Spears, and that Eurovision lady, I think her name was like Bambi Thug or something. I can think of so many more examples. Almost every single one of these beta kitten, MK Ultra controlled media pop stars are actually embodying this version of womanhood, right? This hyper sexualized, immature, emotionally infantile, self-obsessed version of femininity that they're trying to project into the collective. And they're specifically targeting young girls, young women, so that they would see that okay, oh, that is what a woman is, right? That is a role model of what a grown female person is. And subconsciously, these frequencies of, sexual slavery, control, breeder programs, infantile, maturity is inserted into our body, and it creates this frequency fence. And in some ways, this even ties into our, feel our judgment of our bodies, like, oh, like, I don't look good, I'm fat, I'm not pretty, I'm not attractive, I'm not sexy, right? My body's not good. Like, I grew up in the 90s, and like eating disorders were this whole trend. That was like the trend back then. Now it's all about like the trans thing. But back in the 90s, it was about eating disorders. And even that is a thing that traps us in maiden consciousness, in immature feminine consciousness, in this immature way of relating to our body, which of course applies for male-bodied beings as well. And so the thing with this program is that when you are like this immature being, you are afraid of the powers that be, right? You don't want to not fit in. You don't want to be the black sheep. You want to have your head in the sand. You don't feel safe to wake up to these realities of the world. You're a good little sheep. You're easily controlled. And when you become a parent and you have that consciousness, then you become a groomer. I'm sorry, this is like so intense, right? Jared says there are no genders, we are spirit. I mean, we are physical. There's absolutely different bodies with different organs. Bodies have organs. That's just the reality. Organs have spirit. So there is absolutely spiritual mystery and mastery to the way that our bodies are designed. That is just the truth. There's no way around it. Of course, I believe that our spirit is eternal and always spectrum, expressing union consciousness, but we came into this reality to experience female and male bodies. And that is also a really important part of the reality, that when we try to negate that, we're still erasing Holy Mother's mystery. When we're trying to negate the physical body's sacredness and perfect design, we are eradicating Holy Mother's wisdom. So that is a whole realm of this world, a whole agenda that is still tied into the eradication of female consciousness and the female body. So anyway, when we hold that immature consciousness and we're in that frequency fence and we give birth to children, which most people do, most people, like my parents, for example, a lot of people that I know, their parents had children not because they thought, oh, a human being is the most sacred creation and a soul from the heart of God is going to be able to incarnate into this body to have a divine lifetime. Like, rarely do any parents have those kinds of thoughts as they decide to incarnate and give birth to a baby. Most of the time is that's just what you do, right? The grooming program, the breeder program. So when you make a child in that consciousness and yet you're not willing to stand up for the truth and you're scared of the powers that be and all of that immature consciousness that we just talked about before, then these parents then override their own intelligence and they basically birth children right into the false matrix. And this is like they're just creating and breeding beings for the collective ritual abuse, for the collective energy harvest, for the farm of human soul energy. And this, of course, is tied into the human trafficking grid and all of these grids, but this is the watered down level of it, right? Because the children, and this became the children of Eve, the muggles, or the human beings that are born in unconsciousness, that are fed into this system and given GMOs and corn solids and told that breastfeeding is not, the best way to feed their babies, that of course high fructose corn syrup is the most healthy thing to give newborns, right? All of these different layers of this control grid ties back into this birthing process and this original mom and dad, Adam and Eve, who were just these infantile, immature, naive beings that had not matured into their full divine masculine, divine feminine embodiments at all. And it's crazy. that, unfortunately, most of us grew up in that. This is why a lot of our parents are not willing to look at the hard things, and they don't want to do the healing work, or they don't know how to have emotionally mature conversations, because they're trapped inside of this frequency fence of human emotional development and maturation, and they're forced to breed inside of that consciousness so that all humans are in this low state of emotional maturity, so we can't ever break out of the frequency fence. And this is kind of the depth of work that we have to do. The Eve program is literally only one of the layers that we're going to be going into in Healing the Womb this year. And the way that we scan, like if we have a part of this inside our own body, is seeing how we handle our life, how much reverence and sanctity we have for human bodies, how we relate to our own human body. Like, do we feel that our body is a temple, a sacred creation of God, or do we feel like it's a commodity that we can alter and change to serve our selfish ego desires? Do we feel like we are judging our physical appearance? Do we feel like we are jealous of others? Or do we feel like we move through the world with a high level of groundedness and elegance and peace, that we don't really feel like drawn towards gossip or these ways of communication and ways of relating to others that are really, immature and kind of disembodied in a way, right? Disembodied from our connection to true love. And when we realize that there is so much growth that we have to do on our human emotional self, we realize why there's so much programming in the new age to get people to disassociate and be like, you're a Pleiadian, you're an Andromedan, you're this Darcy, that's Darcy, and just all the whole time ignoring the fact that we're actually human, and humans that have missed out on very crucial passages of initiation that allows for us to mature into grown-ups, into mature emotional expression. And then we wonder why we are not able to collaborate and create generational wealth and to have enough power to change the world, because we're a bunch of kids that are traumatized running around trying to play Avatar, trying to pretend like we're these incredibly cosmic star beings while we've not fully matured and healed our base level of our human consciousness. And this is not our fault, because this whole world is built so that our human self is traumatized and malformed by the time we're an adult, that most people, will have a very hard time to travel out of that unless they very intentionally go in to do this deep work. And so I want to invite you to my whole day of womb temple that I'm facilitating next Saturday on the 12th of April for absolutely free. And I'm really, really excited to do this, actually, because I've not been able to do this. And now that the land payment has gone through, I have this extra energy and space. I just want to give these codes to you guys. I feel like, there's so much of this energy that can absolutely change people's lives and help you with the healing of your body multidimensionally on these levels, to come into sovereignty on a level that is really hard to articulate, is these layers of our consciousness that we're journeying into. And, doing a class with me is not going to fix it. Doing a class with me is not going to heal the things. It is still going to require an actual fire inside of you that wants to heal. Like, nobody is going to accidentally stumble their way into heaven on earth in this day and time and age. It's hard work. You have to confront the darkness and the shadow and the evil in a very, very crazy way that only an angelic soul would choose to do, because you remember how sacred human bodies are, and you want to help humans come find our way back to that. But for the people that are ready to do this work, that maybe just don't have the finances, or just want to join, I am going to be spending a whole 6 hours inside the womb temple transmitting these miracle medicine keys and codes to you guys. And I think I actually forgot to include this link in the description, but I'm going to write it down here in the chat. And I'm going to add this in the description when this live stream is done. But yeah, so many of the difficulties that we experience as a community comes back to this Eve consciousness or the Adam consciousness, this immature, self non-reliant, right? We just displace accountability, displace leadership to other people. We're easy to jump into gossiping and spreading separation. We don't want to take accountability for where we are on our own journey. And at the end of the day, it's just youth consciousness. It's like we're stuck in a little girl and a little boy's consciousness in an adult's body. And this is the pandemic that we have on the planet right now, is that we just have a bunch of little boys that are pretending to be kings, running the world, and is this immature, uninitiated consciousness that human beings are trapped inside of. And in order for us to liberate ourselves into this, out of that and into adult consciousness, it requires for us to take responsibility and accountability for ourselves, to realize that nobody is coming to heal our victimization and heal our pain and to, change our body, heal our body. Nobody's coming to do that for us. We have to do it ourselves. We have to, find our way back into how deeply we love this world and love our body, and allow that to inspire us into action. Right? The reason why I meditate and I try to heal myself, and I willingly go into these dark places inside of myself to heal, is because my heart feels like this human body is so sacred, and there's no other thing I could be doing with my human life other than to repairing and reclaiming that, and supporting humanity do the same. And that's really the only level of power that is going to lead you through this depth of healing. So oftentimes we're in our mind and we want to know everything, right? We're like, oh, these conspiracy theories and these controllers and these Lisa Renee articles, and now we know all the things. But how all those things apply to our own body is actually where it's at. To be able to recognize how those things have assaulted us and have endangered us and distorted our consciousness and severed our connection to our own innocence and created imprints and pain and trauma inside of our own flesh and light body, right, is only when we come deeply into awareness of that and have this willingness to go in to those levels and, be willing to go and face those realities, that we can really heal ourselves and step into this next realm where we can repair our body enough to become a walking stargate of heaven on earth, to be ready to leave behind all of those programs and to walk forward as a walking emanation of God's love and of heaven. And when we can land that union with creation, that innocence, that purity, that original blueprint, that maturity, that elegance of our true original avatar consciousness, when we're able to pull that through our body, which is only possible when we clear our body of all of the imprints and distortions and the viruses, only then are we an instrument for heaven on earth. Prior to that, we're just thinking about it. Right? And this is the depth of medicine that I am inviting you guys to come into. I don't want to do this publicly on YouTube because, it doesn't feel correct. I don't feel like I can create a temple container and to have that, privacy and held space publicly on YouTube, which is why you're going to have to sign up and join the Zoom link next Saturday. But I'm going to be here in the womb temple. We're doing 3 workshops and 1 full-length oracle ceremony. And this is for women. It is inside the womb temple. I hope that one day Shane will do one for men. But I do find that because I am a Taoist medicine woman, and the way that this knowledge comes through me is very biological. It has to do with, Chinese medicine and the spirit of the organs. And obviously female bodies have different organs than male bodies, and we experience reality differently because of that, because consciousness is alive through the physical body right now in this reality. And it is satanic to try to eradicate that truth. And that's where I stand on that topic of discussion. And once you see through these programs, it's easy to look at the world and say, wow, they're trying to teach our kids that they can be dogs and cats. They're teaching our kids that they can just cut up their body to become something else, that God made them imperfect, that God made a mistake, right? These are satanic belief systems that they're normalizing, and they can only exist inside of an antichrist reality. And all of that, is embedded in these biblical programs. So when we talk about the biblical suppression of the feminine, what it comes down to is the mysteries of Holy Mother and the mysteries of the feminine being completely erased from our mind. And this is the mysteries of matter, the mysteries of life in the flesh. And this is actually the meaning of Christ. The original teachings of Christ is the reality that the eternal living Christed consciousness becomes material, becomes physical. That means this whole earth is a Christed reality, is a reality that was made by God, made in the image of God. It is reflecting this beauty and this holiness. And when you go for a walk in these sacred sites and in the forest, you feel how sacred this planet is, and you feel it inside of your body. And when the Bible and the these heretical missionaries chopped off our human connection to the earth, chopped off our human connection to our body, this was an all part of the effort to eradicate the feminine from the story. You think about the Trinity being Holy Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I mean, they literally made the mother into a ghost, right? And how is that just normalized in this world? And so many people just believe in that. It's like, does that even make sense? How could there be no feminine divine when we literally feel her in our bodies, in the earth? And the only way that we could believe that is if we're completely severed from our inner gnosis, from our body, and from the earth. So the biblical suppression of the feminine was not just about erasing Holy Mother, but about erasing an entire relationship that humans have to the physical reality. And part of that is making us feel like our body is shameful, our body is dirty, this world is full of sin, this world is full of karma. When we hold those beliefs, right, we reject this world. When we reject this world, we reject this physical part of ourselves. We reject that part of Christ, where this physical reality is actually God incarnate. And that is the very definition of a satanic reality. It's inverted, it's backwards. The inversion is that instead of saying this world is heaven, this world was made from the heart of God with benevolence for all of life to enjoy, because God is good, God is benevolent, that God made these bodies to enjoy this world, to be inspired by its beauty and its majesty, share, in the sanctity of what is here. That is the true Christed consciousness. That so many different indigenous people and tribes all over the world, they held this original tribal Christed knowledge. This is the true meaning of Christ. And then this false, let's say, antichrist, it is pretending to be Christ. It is pretending to be this religion, and it's coming in and it's cutting people off from their true connection to their innate sanctity, which is anti-life. It's anti-Christ, which is, the whole thing with Satanism is inverting the sanctity of the physical, of the matter, making it sinful, making it not sacred. So now we realize, and this is so funny, sometimes I get comments from Christians on my videos and they're like, oh, like you should repent and you've been deceived. I'm like, you guys just wait till you find out how many layers of deception there truly is on this planet. because we are piercing through all layers and levels of this false matrix and coming back into our inner gnosis of the sanctity of life. And that is the true wisdom of Holy Mother. And only when we truly remember that as a collective can we come into right relationship with our bodies and with the earth. Every distortion on this planet basically can get corrected if people just remembered the consciousness and the wisdom of Holy Mother and the Divine Feminine, which is about life in the flesh, about matter, right? Mater. Um, for example, this whole, trans madness is like, yes, our spirit is eternal and we experience ourselves as masculine and feminine. We have masculine energy and feminine energy. And when we're in a female or a male body, there's a reason why our soul and God chose for us to come into this body in this lifetime. And if we feel uncomfortable, we should meditate and go in and explore why we feel uncomfortable. And if we just decide that the body is something that we can just chop up because there's no meaning and God makes mistakes and all this stuff, this antichrist belief systems, then we end up in a place where we actually can't fulfill why our soul decided to come into the gender of body that it came into. And the only reason why that confusion exists in the world is because the knowledge of matter, the wisdom of Holy Mother, has been completely eradicated from human consciousness. And now we have no right relationship to nature. Like, it's just a commodity. It's just something that we can hijack and use. Like, we can just cut down all the trees and take all the resources and, take all of our life force essence and grind and hustle and, be in the scarcity reality when all of that is an anti-mother grid that the Bible and this false religion enforces. And again, a lot of Yeshua's teachings are Christed. The Bible carries these Christed codes. I really believe that the ancient original Celtic Christianity, for example, and even the ancient Taoist knowledge, like my lineage, my ancestors talk about heaven in the earth, heaven in the flesh, the meeting point, between those places. And this is a Christed lineage. And so many dragon lineages teach about the sanctity of matter, of our body, of the earth. All of those things are Christed knowledge of creation that this false Christ religion has decided to gaslight, to say, oh, all of those ones are satanic and this is the one that's real, and we're going to actually just remove Holy Mother from the picture and say that these females are prostitutes, these holy women are prostitutes, and we're going to erase Holy Mother from the Trinity, and we're going to say that Eve is the progenitor mother of humanity. Now, it might seem like a little overlay, but on a planetary consciousness level, this is informing how humans relate to themselves and the earth. And so now we have a humanity that's very disconnected from their bodies, disconnected from the earth. There's nihilism. People think that nothing matters and that there's no God. It's a whole mess, and it all comes down to this original curse of Eve and Adam, thinking about how Adam it's a drone. The Adam energy is the drone energy, right? And when I looked into this, in a way, I felt like, so Eves are basically the females that are enslaved inside of the false matrix, and Adams are the males that are enslaved inside the false matrix. And even though the Eves are enslaved, in a way, they are prized possessions, meaning because they're the breeders, they actually are given precedence to the males. And I know that, like, people say, oh, it's a patriarchy and the men have it so good. But when you really look at it, men have been tossed the meat grinder. Like, every other generation, there's some war that wipes out all of the men in a civilization. And the males in our society are seen as drones. They're nothing but worker drones. They don't mean anything. They're not significant. They're there to give their lives for stuff. And in a way, when you tune into this creepy weird thing, even with like the OnlyFans and stuff, right? It's like the Eves are prized possessions. The Eves have some value because they're breeders and they have a womb, And we don't we don't have reverence for the womb, but we can use it for their end. But Adam's, the men are disposable. This is like an unconscious energy that is in the collective consciousness inside the false matrix. Okay. And so we're breaking the spell. Like as soon as the consciousness sees the overlay, sees how we're playing into this field, as soon as we see it, the spell is broken. And the next step is for us to no longer participate. How? By cultivating maturity, by bringing in the true teachings of Holy Mother and Holy Father and embodying them, and beginning to treat this world and treat ourselves and treat our brothers and sisters as actual sacred beings. You're not awake if you can't, stop yourself from judging other people, from gossiping, right? From hierarchy, from comparison. You're not free from the false matrix if you can't see that your brothers and sisters are sacred, and so are you. And it's not your fault that sometimes we slip. Like even sometimes my system, my body, when I see something, I'm like, oh, that person is something. But at this point, my mind immediately goes, you're in a state of judgment, and that's a fragment inside of your own being. And then I have to change and reconnect and mature myself, because I'm the only one that I can be accountable for. I'm the only one that I can control. I can't create heaven on earth out there unless I'm 100% fully committed to living in integrity and living in alignment with that inside of myself. So when people are gossiping about people, I do not participate. When people are saying, oh, this and that, and just creating fragmentation instead of prayers, I do not participate. And I'm saying this because this is something that we each have to commit to inside of ourselves, right? And heaven on earth is going to come when we all commit to that. And it becomes easier when we become the way showers and we become the pathfinders for that commitment, to know that we are way more devoted to union, devoted to the sanctity of humans than our ego that needs to feel better about ourselves by putting someone else down. Right? And that's nothing we need to be ashamed of, because our ego has gone through so much trauma. Our ego was fractured through this ritual trauma of feeling like unless we become more valuable than other people, we're not going to survive. This is an insidious level of this mind control program that pits us against each other. Instead of seeing our brothers and sisters as sacred, holy beings, we see them as threats. We see them as our competition. We see them as beings that are directly hindering our own ability to receive nourishment and love from God. Right? And so when we realize how deeply our psyche and our emotional body has been mutilated and abused inside the false matrix, and that is why we think the way we do, why we act the way we do, why we feel broken, we're not going to be able to come out of it. And here's the amazing thing, is that once we do realize that, God has miracle medicine that can fully and completely heal and bring us home to our original blueprint. And this is another really big thing that is very potent this year in the serpent year, the serpent that carries the medicine of renewal and rebirth and resurrection. So many times I hear people say, oh, healing is a never-ending spiral and there's always something to heal. And I'm like, how could it be heaven on earth? Are we really made to like be on this planet with all of the birds and all of the music to make and all the art to create and all the stories to tell and all the fun to be had and all the trails to walk and all the flowers to appreciate, to just heal until we die? I was inspired to really consider the possibility that there is a timeline in which we can be healed. And unless we believe that that is a possibility, it actually is not possible for us. Right? Because only when we open up to the possibility can the miracle medicine be made available. Are we able to receive it? And, I think we just need to redefine healed, because as soon as we come fully and completely back into union with God and we come back home to the heart of God, even if we feel pain or challenge or discomfort, we can engage with that from a healed place. And so maybe it's just about stepping into a whole different relationship with our healing instead of feeling overpowered by it, instead of feeling victimized and powerless and unable to move forward and completely blocked and feeling this, it's so hard to heal, instead of feeling that way. When we come back home to God, there's miracle medicine there where we realize that as long as we can stay in that place where we're unconditionally worthy of infinite love, that healing can happen almost instantaneously. And our consciousness holds the gift, holds the power. And this, is really this profound depth of medicine that we're going to be holding inside of the womb temple this year, healing the womb. The 9-week container begins April 20th. We're doing 2 containers this year, but I am very, very committed to holding this reality that when you go through this program, you will come out of the other side if you commit to it, if you really feel ready, if you really want to step into that. I am intending to hold the space for you to come into your healed timeline so that you feel like a beloved treasure of God, that no matter what you want to create, you feel empowered to do it with peace and joy. You want to do it from a place of excitement instead of fear and competition and judgment of yourself. And I believe that this is 1000% possible. In fact, it's easy. You just need the right inoculation of energy, of consciousness, a space where you really know that it's possible, and to experience the grace of Holy Mother and Holy Father's love. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be really, really profound. And I'm honestly just so in awe and grateful that I get to hold these keys and this medicine, because it's not me that's teaching it. It's not me that's healing anyone, but people experience miracles because this field is truly just immaculate and pure. I'm just getting over bronchitis here. It's been really profound to heal. Every time I have a sickness, I call it a shamanic healing event. And it's been really profound to sit with bronchitis and to feel the lungs as these sacred trees of life. And as soon as I went in to ask my body what it was releasing, I saw, like, when I was born and the first breath I took, and there was a doctor, he smacked me, and there was all these strangers in the room and flashing lights, and I was immediately just hit in the lungs with this I'm now separate from God trauma that was so painful and deep for me to feel. This is what we're going to talk about in our next YouTube video. But this is the tree of life connection that we are restoring. And it happens inside of our body. We aren't meant to be walking around in the world feeling completely separate from everything else. That is not normal, as I've come to discover. In fact, what is normal is feeling 1000% held and in union, and just this beloved extension, creation of the most benevolent, peaceful, loving God. That God cares about us so much, and every single eyelash, every single personality, right? Every little thing was so beloved, and that's where we came from. So of course, we have so much grief from leaving that world instead of our body. But yeah, this body has been processing this because I'm getting ready to bring us home back into connection with the Tree of Souls, and that's what we're going to be doing inside of the Womb Temple this year. This is the only way that we're going to be able to start our mission. You're not going to be able to bring heaven on earth to the planet unless it fully exists 100%. We're anchored in that reality inside of our body. And from there, anything is possible. And my body's been going through this really intense re-encryption healing process this year so that I can hold space for this work. And it is just very profoundly deep, you guys. It's really big work. And it's the work that people have not been ready to do. And then in the same breath, we're asking, why isn't it starting? Why is my mission not started? Why is this? Why is that? And it's because this just really deep levels of self-awareness that we need to gain and innocence we need to retrieve these blueprints of like pornographic inserts, sexual distortion. I believe that every single fetish is a sexual distortion. You can fight me on it. I don't care. I just remember, that our sexuality is sacred, and that when our matter is fetishized, it is a satanic thing. And I know that sounds like puritanical, but it isn't, right? It's not about fearing God, right? It's not about being obedient to God because you're afraid that you might get punished. That's the false overlay, the biblical fear motivation that we're clearing out of our body. What it really is being so in love with the sanctity of ourself and the planet and creation and God that is easy to respond with reverence. That's the original blueprint. Not the, oh, God is going to punish me and I'm going to die if I sin. And like all that inversion only perpetuates more perversion because it's not rooted in innocence, it's rooted in sin. And I guess I'm just running my mouth at this point. I'm happy about it. I feel unhinged. I feel unleashed. I feel free to speak these truths. In past ages, I might have been labeled a heretic and probably would have gotten rolled off somewhere. But in this lifetime, I've gotten the emerald green light to really speak the truth. And the truth is that we are holy, we're sacred, and our bodies can only bloom into its highest emanation of being a house of God when we recognize ourselves as that. And the fetishes are trauma responses, right? That's the thing. It's not like it's a sin and you're going to hell if you have them. It's that they're trauma responses. They are coping mechanism, like this whole like the dom stuff. It's like fetishized the dad trauma, fetishized mom trauma, right? Fetishized abuse trauma. And, there are ways to move beyond that when we understand that we are sacred. And there has been so many layers of programming and inserts and mind control to make us believe that we're not. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to grapple with. We have to understand this. Right? Like there's so many people that say, well, Z, like what about sexual liberation? Like we can have sex with whoever we want. Like that's part of our birthright. And it's like, yes, but is the body built to do that? Did God make our body to do that? And when we see through the lens of awe, right? God is so benevolent and beautiful that God made these bodies capable of creation, of co-creation. Right? God is so benevolent that God made these bodies capable of miracles, capable of creating the most beautiful music and art, and to create cities and worlds that we can, why is the world, why are the cities, the current cities, the way they are? Because our creation energy is not being honored. And this is completely intentional. We've been programmed by demons to embody demonic qualities so that we have a fallen civilization. And until we sort that out, we're not creating these ascended cities of light. And so, there are some beings on this earth, it's very easy for us to be celibate because we've already come into union with God inside of our bodies. We already feel the perfection and the awe-inspiring power of God's creative energy flowing through our body. I mean, what more are we looking for here? Like, what more do we need? And from that place, this power can then be poured into our purpose. And you should really look at that. Like so many of these people that are obsessed with sex, obsessed with free sexuality, like what are they doing? What are they doing with, their lives? And I'm not speaking that from a judgment. Like everybody has their own free will. They can do what they wish. And when we are searching for our own path, we have to ask ourselves, like, what are we wanting to create? What lifestyle are we wanting to live? Where are we going? Right? And sometimes like people say, Z, your teachings are too puritanical. And I mean, I say, I don't think they are. From where I'm standing, I experience peace and joy and miracles and fulfillment. You know, my dreams are coming true with such ease and power. And isn't that what you want? And, you know, it's like, as children of God, sometimes children don't know best, right? Sometimes they're like, well, I want all of that and I want to do whatever I want. And it's like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So, yes, this womb temple, it is, you know, some of the most advanced teachings on the planet, and it is really for specific people. It is not for everyone. One day it will be, as collective consciousness evolves, but right now is really for the way showers, the front runners, you guys who are like relieved to hear what I'm saying, right? You're like, oh my God, I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was supposed to be just, you know, doing all that. And now I know that I'm just an angel. Now I know that I'm just here to embody a higher blueprint. And you're not weird, you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. This is the way you were made. God made you to be a gift, to be an oracle, to be a co-creator, to be a goddess, to be a house of the goddess energy. And this is the true Holy Mother consciousness that is coming home. I'm very aware of, you know, the immaturity in the spiritual community that wants to make it seem like the goddess just twerks all day and the goddess just wants, you know, dollar bills and men to worship her. It's like, that's not the real goddess. That's a fragmented goddess from the fall. And that's just where we're at, though, you know? And so it's okay. There's no judgment. It's not saying that's bad. It's just saying, where do we want to go? Where are you going? Are you a way shower? Are you a true embodiment of, you know, original mother consciousness that is really looking for people to be instruments and vessels of her whole eternal essence? And this is true for Holy Father as well. You know, there's the false father energy and all over the Bible and stuff. And Holy Father is now looking for people to embody that true, eternal, solar, life-giving essence. And that's not for everyone. It's not a path for everyone right now. Like, some people are listening to this and they're like, what are you talking about? Or you're really judgmental, right? They're like, they think I'm being judgmental, but I'm really just identifying, you know, what I'm here to do, what I'm here to be. Like, you know, it's just realizing that things are exactly the way they are and is right exactly the way it is. And we're here to create a new reality. We're here to bring in a whole other octave of this original memory and remembrance. And this is what is actually going to open up and unlock all the spells and grids on this earth. And hopefully, you know, and by the way, this consciousness is the way into the Christos avatar body, right? Like, to be one of the 144,000, to be one of the 144,000, you're essentially saying that you're an avatar of God's love, an avatar of God's essence. And the only way to fully activate that blueprint is by connecting to and embodying the true eternal essence of Holy Mother and Holy Father. And so that's why these are all frequency fences when we can get trapped in like, oh, I'm a goddess. And, you know, like, I'm going to twerk, you know, whatever. It's like, that's a frequency fence that is not going to lead to the full awakening and activation of your Christos avatar light body. But when you do start to commune with these true original essence of God, it pulls you into this whole other octave of consciousness where now you have the groundedness and the clarity of intelligence to actually walk forth in your mission. So that message is very specific, I guess, for very specific people. And I think that about sums up my rambles for the day. Really want to help you guys identify that this Eve program, it really is so pervasive. It is like this frequency that just like grabs at particularly the lower chakras. And yeah, this is what's blocking us from embodying into the sacral chakra. This is what is blocking us from embodying into the lower chakras, blocking us from really standing in that true goddess power of wisdom and sovereignty and in intellect and creativity, right? Compassion, justice, all of these true frequencies of the goddess is not able to land in the body until we clear these distortions and sexual misery programs from our sacral chakra. Somebody saying twerking and shaking off emotional baggage and shaking our tailbone is good for health. Hey, that's totally true. Just don't do it seductively, okay? That's all I'm saying. Because when you do, you're allowing, like, the seductress is a feminine demonic gestalt. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone or judge anyone. I'm just saying my soul has decided that that is not something that I want to dabble in or want to be knotted or corded into. The purification and the sanctification of our body is what brings our body into this state where we can be a house of God. So yeah, I think that that seductress energy is big trouble for the feminine collective, and because it's very subtle, right? The seductress energy, as I was talking to a sister of mine, it is also the using of our sight, the using of our vision, the using of our spiritual gifts to manipulate, to self-serve. And this is, this bad news. We're going to talk about all of that in the Healing the Womb course as well. I think in one of the weeks we're going to be going into the lunar fallen feminine, the demonic feminine gestalts. I know that we don't want to go there, right? Because we want to feel like the feminine, our farts smell like roses. There's nothing wrong with us. The masculine hurt us. The masculine is what's wrong with the world. We don't want to look at ourselves, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to go there. We're going to go into the lunar feminine, and we're going to bring the light there, bring the solar consciousness so that we can really reclaim ourselves in all the places of Holy Mother's body that has been fragmented. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now. I love you guys so much. I'm going to add all the links in the description. I can't wait to see you guys. We start April 20th, but I'm doing a whole day for free next weekend on the 12th. I'll add the link into the description for that as well. But this is deep, big medicine, you guys. Your life will not be the same, and it is really a soul contract. I'm not going to be doing much. God has asked me to create the space for us to encounter God together, to encounter the profoundness of these medicines together. And we're going to be doing some incredible reality shifting work together. So hope to see you soon, and bye for now.